Hey, what's up, everybody? It's June 17th. I'm Tomas.
And I'm Thomas.
And this is TechBus. Thanks again for joining us. This is our second episode. We're really happy about it. As you know from the previous episode, TechBus means technology and business, so we explore how they interact and sometimes conflict with each other. My colleague here, Thomas, let me know what's going on with your day, man, or your week, actually.
My week, working on a lot of custom software projects right now. We're also getting ready to do some marketing around a new thing we're working on called collaborative innovation.
Nice.
And basically that's a way to work with companies, particularly around how are they collaborating and using document management within their organization. So we work with them to help them figure that out and build solutions that help accomplish that. So we're getting ready to, have a good marketing push on that. So we're getting into Salesforce and coming up with some campaigns. So it's going to be pretty fun to see where it goes in the next couple of months.
Awesome. Salesforce, that's what I've been working on this week. Not much to really report on that. It's not very glamorous, but it's pretty cool learning how effective they are, as opposed to some things I was doing, data mining and putting it in Excel, and how they allow you to do all that kind of under one umbrella. So as for our listeners who tune in first to our first episode, you know that me and Thomas both bring up a talking point that we find interesting. We want to introduce a new segment real quick. I just wanted to bring some honorable mentions for you guys to look up when you have some time. First one is from Inc.com, 6 reasons you should really worry about Microsoft buying LinkedIn. I happen to be discussing Microsoft buying LinkedIn, so I thought this was an interesting article. I won't go into it all, but a couple of the talking points. Remember Nokia when they were acquired by Microsoft. You're going to get a lot more marketing spam, and then Microsoft isn't sure what it's going to do with LinkedIn at this point. Something else from source, Forbes.com, 5 things in technology that happened this past week and how they affect your business. The coolest thing I found from that is Walmart's using drones. So they're using drones to go out throughout their warehouses, these massive warehouses, and they're able to do effective inventory checks for them. So in 24 hours, they can do what human beings do within 2.5 weeks to a month, and apparently it's way more effective. It's all data-driven, so I thought that was pretty cool. And then finally, from BusinessInsider.com, Yahoo plans to sell roughly 3,000 patents, including its proprietary search technology. So numbers are being thrown around from 1 billion to 3, and some of the companies interested in getting involved are Verizon, AT&T, and then some other ones. So I thought that was pretty cool. So when you guys get a chance, go check those out. And when we come back, I'll get into this LinkedIn acquisition from Microsoft. Hey everybody, welcome back to TechBus. I'm going to get into my talking point. Before I do, just to give you a preview of what's coming up ahead, Thomas, let us know what you're going to talk about after.
Sure, we're going to be talking about Electron, which is a multi-device platform. So when you're developing your web applications, you can also have that same code run on a desktop, Mac, Linux, Windows.
Yeah.
Some of the technology behind Slack, so we'll be delving into that in our final segment.
Nice. Awesome. So I chose what has been kind of on the headline of every website I visited, which is Microsoft buys LinkedIn. Before I go into it and what I really want to get into, the meaty part of it is just a couple of facts from the deal and about LinkedIn. Deal was for $26.2 billion. LinkedIn boasts 433 million professionals. They think this is going to challenge cloud software rivals such as Salesforce, which we were just talking about. When it was announced, the LinkedIn stock went up, but it capped off at 196. At its highest, it was at 270. LinkedIn CEO Jeff Weiner will remain with the company, and the Microsoft deal that had unanimous support from the board is expected to close this year. So the reason why I wanted to get into this, besides it being the hot topic of this week, is what's it going to mean for, why? And Are you familiar with LinkedIn? Do you use it a lot?
Oh yeah, I have a LinkedIn account.
Okay. Do you get on it often?
It depends on what's going on, but sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But yeah, it's definitely a very powerful tool, and I'd be curious to see where Microsoft goes with it. I mean, you mentioned trying to compete with Salesforce, but that's one option. But they've always tried to get into the social media space. Google tried to do it with not very much success. I know Facebook kind of dominates that for the older people, like my age, I guess. But there's all these different social media platforms out there. But I'd be curious to see, what Microsoft does with it. I don't think they're going to make it worse. I mean, there's already advertising on there. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, here's some of the things I found from the article.
And you used to work for LinkedIn, right?
I worked for LinkedIn for 5 years. So when we started, we were on 120th and Blondo, and it was really cool. They had whiteboards where you wrote how much overtime you were going to use, and it was kind of a wild, wild west type of. There was no departments, and there was no procedures. And to see it now, I mean, if you were at that point and you see it today, it's amazing. It's crazy. And the good thing is they try to keep some of that synergy. It's hard to do, obviously, in a corporation, to still have that feel of 50 employees, but they're trying their best. I think what I took from the article, I'd like to kind of read this off. They envision their Microsoft Word and their PowerPoint kind of integrating with LinkedIn, which I thought was interesting because you can do that right now. You can upload your resume using those type of files, but they foresee some sort of robust user interface once they integrate those. I'm not sure I see it right now, but in your opinion, does Microsoft add to LinkedIn, or is LinkedIn adding to Microsoft?
I almost think it's LinkedIn's adding to Microsoft. I mean, they bought Skype recently.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And I think they're kind of phasing out Link and some of their other communication stuff and replacing that with Skype and kind of rebranding it and absorbing it into the Microsoft ecosystem. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with LinkedIn. I don't quite see the whole Office integration. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I'd have to see where they go with it. I think part of it's the data too. They just get all that data of all those people on the network and business information. I mean, it's probably invaluable. The other thing is, it's a viable business, LinkedIn. And it doesn't make. It makes some of its money from advertising, but I think it makes a lot more of its money from those like high-end recruiting packages and using the data and stuff like data.com and Salesforce. So I can kind of see that potentially too being a
going along with what you said right now. The company makes most of its $3 billion in annual revenue from job hunters and recruiters. So data, LinkedIn has the data, right? Or is it Microsoft adding data to LinkedIn? Because if they indeed make their money right now from people who are either job hunting or people who are posting jobs, then are we looking for Microsoft to make that streamlined process better or more effective, or add its technology to LinkedIn to?
I honestly don't know. I mean, that's kind of LinkedIn isn't. I mean, if you look at it from a business perspective, it's not really a social media platform with advertising, and that's how it makes money. That's how Facebook makes money.
Right.
LinkedIn makes money off of recruiters.
Right.
We have to recruit for our company resources, and LinkedIn's probably one of the best tools out there to find people.
Right.
If your company needs talent, HR departments, recruiters, they're using LinkedIn all the time to connect with not only potential talent but also potential clients. So. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a whole nother ball of wax for Microsoft to get into. Did they mention, did Microsoft mention the reason that they acquired it?
Well, they said here that Microsoft and LinkedIn share a mission, which is helping people work more effectively and creating relationships. So I guess this particular acquisition happened once the CEO, Nadella, actually met Jeff at a conference. And then they said that the talks actually started happening in February. So they're kind of using the synergy of creating relationships that kind of led to this acquisition and this two conglomerates coming together to hopefully push that message of jobs and opportunities. So they're saying the deal in itself is kind of a testimony to how relationships can help, and that's how they're going to move forward, is being able to help people create relationships. The only thing that I see in real world is, I think we already discussed this. So I'm trying to help somebody find a recruiting job. So I found the name of this company, that it's a really great company, and then I found the director on there. And so I was able to contact him and reach him through LinkedIn. That's the only way I knew who that was. And then when I contacted him, he was very much more offended than he was glad that I was trying to reach out to him and offer him opportunity. So I don't know if LinkedIn has quite reached the level to where, and he referenced how did I receive his information, and I said, well, I looked you up on LinkedIn, and then I made that phone call. I don't know if LinkedIn quite has that designation of relationship yet in the business world. I don't know if you agree from that evaluation, but
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a two-sided coin there. There's people who probably don't necessarily want to be contacted for certain services, but you're putting your information out there, and
right.
There's probably a lot of different algorithms you can run on, like how do you allow people to connect? How do you allow people to send messages? How much information do you give out? I know one of the things with LinkedIn is if you pay these high-end recruiter packages, you kind of get access to everybody's data.
Right.
There's a famous saying, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And that's what the users of LinkedIn are, is they're the product, they're the thing that makes it have any value. So really that's what Microsoft bought, was this huge network of people and contacts. And
so then would you then say that we are looking up for more ramp of, if LinkedIn has the data and Microsoft is this big company, then the acquisition is being positioned to be creating relationships and making it more robust, but would it be, as the article pointed out, an opportunity for Microsoft to reach this many people regarding its product by integrating their product into the
Well, I'll be curious to see what they do with Microsoft Dynamics, which is their CRM.
Yeah.
Because you have things like Salesforce and data.com and all this information, and I think if you could integrate all the data that's in LinkedIn with some kind of robust CRM, that would be immensely powerful.
Right.
And my bet is that's where Microsoft's going. They're going to spin up some kind of Microsoft Dynamics integration with LinkedIn data, and I think you'd have a really powerful marketing tool there. So that's my guess of where they're going with it, and it'll be interesting to see. Hey everybody, thanks for coming back. It's our final segment here. We're going to talk a little bit about the technology side of things. So we'll jump right into it. I was going to talk about a platform called Electron. Now, what Electron is you can write basically a web application that you would do, in whatever technology, but what gets served up is HTML, JavaScript, CSS. And this basically puts it inside of a frame, inside of a desktop app. So you could run on Windows or Mac or Linux. And then it provides a JavaScript framework where you can hook into things that you don't have access to, like in running on that environment, like the file system or other peripheral things on the computer. So what the cool thing about this is you can write one source code and deploy it, and then it's your web app, but then it's also deployed as a desktop app, and you have one code base, and then you have switches in your code to determine what environment you are, and then you can expose different functionality to your application. It also kind of takes some of the hard things out of it, like automatic updates, so you can push out updates to everybody who has the application installed on their computer.
Nice.
Native menu notifications. It has some application reporting and debugging tools, and also Windows installer functionality. So it's really kind of cool. It's you use web technologies, and this whole thing is open source, so you can download the source code off GitHub, change it, modify it. It's cross-platform, like I was saying before. You can run it on any device, Mac, Windows, and Linux. And it's 100% free. One of the cool things about this, is there's some pretty successful apps that are running this. Slack, which is a really popular chat application,
Right.
and how you have the desktop app and you have the Slack website. You notice they kind of look the same, well, because they are, but it's just running that web app on, on your desktop through Electron. And then you have Visual Studio Code by Microsoft is another tool out there that's pretty popular. So there's a bunch of other ones here. So it's it's a pretty stable, somewhat proven technology.
Yeah.
This is something we're going to start adopting if we can, on certain projects, because I think it adds a lot of power, and you get the power of putting it on the desktop if you want to, and you can have one code base. And really, a lot of people are like kind of saying, well, why even develop desktop applications? But with this, it's not like it's just that. You're still developing a web app, but now you have the option to deploy it onto the desktop and get some more enhanced features that you would never be able to get in the browser. So to me, this could be really interesting. I don't know, if this is going to get copycatted by other people.
Mm-hmm.
My guess, eventually you're going to have a big company like Microsoft or somebody or Google, buy this technology. Kind of like how Microsoft bought Xamarin recently.
Yeah.
Same sort of thing, but and there's potentially other competitors that can come up. We saw things with like PhoneGap and some of these early like cross-platform technologies, and maybe I don't think that's going to pan out as good as something like Xamarin, but I think this is a cool technology. We're exploring it more. We're going to develop some test applications out of it.
Nice.
And see where it goes. So, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you think about?
I have two questions for you. So, because it's free, are there built-in limitations to what you can do?
Not as far as I know. I mean, it's open source. It's really community driven. So, you can.
Does this mean if you build something through them, you don't own it, or?
No. We can look at the license agreement here. If you go out to GitHub, you can see. It's under MIT license. So MIT license is a really open-ended, business-friendly license. Really, if you're kind of trying to develop software with open source technology,
What's
MIT.
open source technology for people who don't know?
Open source technology basically means that the source code is available, so you can pull down the code and modify it and change it and see what's going on under the covers. So if you think about something like Microsoft Word, that's closed source, you can't pull down the code and like build that yourself, but other products you can, and a lot of people are going this direction. Microsoft has been for several years. It looks like Mac's trying to come more in this direction too, and it's usually open source is built more around community, people who are excited about a project,
Yeah.
and they just contribute to it. And there's contributors from all over the world working on this, and there's usually people managing the project. But and it can be released on different licenses. A lot of licenses can be very restricting as far as like what you can do with it in business related terms. But MIT is a very business friendly license. Basically, you can download it, do whatever you want with it,
Yeah.
sell it commercially. There's really almost no restrictions on what you can do with it.
So because it provides the desktop, we had talked a lot about people, and you had mentioned it right now too, people moving away from that. Is this really good for businesses then who actually need that type of launch from the business, or is this just as helpful for anybody who, because do people who do apps that are not like Slack, like Messenger, do they need desktop products?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, asking the question in a different way. Instead of saying like, do people need it? There's really not a whole lot of downside to developing it like this. Like, you're still building a web app,
Yeah.
so that's your main target. But with a couple small tweaks in implementing this framework, it's kind of like getting it for free, you know,
Yeah.
and it just adds that extra appeal to your application.
Yeah.
You know, so, and then there's kind of a lot of different ways you can go with it, because obviously if you're running a web app, it's in the browser, you have limitations. You know, you can't access the hardware in any way you want, you can't access the file system in any way you want. So it kind of opens up the doors to making a new, richer application experience when you're on the desktop, without all the overhead of maintaining 2 code bases, 2 projects, you know, one for the desktop, one for your web app, and then having to integrate all that stuff. It's all just one code base, and it's cross-platform, so you're on Mac, you're on Windows.
What about mobile? How does this?
Well, this doesn't, you know, this, if we go back to the website here, this is, you know, really kind of designed for a desktop application.
Okay.
So there are other tools out there for mobile, and personally, my opinion is the type of apps you're going to build with this are going to be kind of richer apps where you have a big UI and things that just maybe don't work on the mobile phone.
Yeah.
So say you have something like Slack, the desktop and the web app are kind of going to be the same thing. But when you're on the mobile device, your experience is going to be different. It might be limited, or the interactions might be different. So I think you'd probably want to use a different technology for that, you know, instead of just creating a responsive website. But the cool thing is, because it's all web technology, you can create it so it's responsive. And, you know, when you shrink down the app, it kind of responds and can work on different devices. So
This seems pretty cool. Why haven't more businesses adopted this type of technology?
you know, as you can see, there are some that have,
Yeah.
and this is kind of a recent new thing. I think it's kind of a new twist on things. You know, people kind of figured the desktop's dead, like why
Yeah.
develop for it?
Right.
But I think this is kind of an interesting idea and a new option out there. And, you know, we'd encourage businesses, if they're going to go develop some software, like, at least look at this, consider it, you know, for just adding a couple small changes, you know, opening that up to be available on your desktop, you know, and the power that comes with that, may be a good option. So
You said you were interested in maybe adopting this for a project. What kind of project would you start small to kind of see what it does, or would you try to do a messenger, or what do you envision is how you're going to move forward with something like this?
yeah, so we, you know, probably start off with something small just to learn the technology. You'd call it like a throwaway project or something, and just
Yeah.
work on it and see what it does. One thing we have in mind for it is we have a document management system called Axiom Workspace, and, you know, if you're in the web, it makes interacting with documents a little bit more difficult. Like, you can't just click on it and open it up in Microsoft Word and save without, you know, going over some technologies like WebDAV and things like that. It's possible, but with this, if you're running on a desktop, it's the same web app, and when you're on that environment, you could just click on a file, download it, open it up in whatever native editors on that machine, edit it, save it, and then have your application send that right back up to the cloud. So
Nice.
can add some more rich document interactions that you wouldn't be able to get on the online mode.
Nice.
And it's still, like I said, maintained in one code base. So that's just one example. There are others out there, but we're pretty excited about this. You know, we'll probably maybe in a few months, after we've dabbled in it a little bit, we'll come back on TechBus and talk about our experience and how things worked out. So
I can't wait to see it.
cool. Well, that's all. You know, I think with that, we're going to wrap up.
For sure, yeah.
Make sure to like us and promote us on YouTube and other resources out there. So
Yeah, and if you have any suggestions or something you'd like to hear us talk about, let us know. We will be adding some guests to the show very shortly, so look out for that, and just join us next time, and we appreciate you following us. Thanks.